That indeed, Pip,
said Joe.
If you couldn't obey yourself.
Biddy asked me here.
Have you thought about when you'll show yourself to Mr. Godry and your sister and me? You will show yourself to us, won't you?
You are so exceedingly quick that it's difficult to keep up with you. She always worked quick, observed Joe. If you had waited another moment, Biddy, you would have heard me say that I shall bring my clothes here in a bundle one evening, most likely on the evening before I go away. Biddy said no more. Handsomely forgiving her, I soon exchanged an affectionate good night with her and Joe and went up to bed. The sun had been shining brightly all day, and as I put the window open and stood looking out, I saw Joe come slowly forth at the dark door below and take a turn or two in the air, and then I saw Biddy come and bring him a pipe and light it for him. He never smoked so late. It seemed to hint to me that he wanted comforting. For some reason or the other, he presently stood at the door immediately beneath me, smoking his pipe, and Biddy stood there too, quietly talking to him, and I knew that they talked of me, for I heard my name mentioned in the endearing tone by both of them more than once. I would not have listened for more, if I could have heard more, so I drew away from the window and sat down in my one chair by the bedside, feeling it very sorrowful and strange that this first night of my bright fortunes should be the loneliest I had ever known. I put my light out and crept into bed, and it was an easy bed now, and I never slept the old sound sleep in it any more. When I awoke, I was much surprised to find Joe sitting beside me, smoking his pipe. He greeted me with a cheerful smile on opening my eyes and said,
"As being the last time, Pip, I thought I'd follow you."
"And Joe, I'm very glad you did so."
"Thank ye, Pip."
"You may be sure, dear Joe," I went on, after we had shaken hands, that I shall never forget you.
No, Pip. I'm sure of that. Aye, old chap. Bless it. It were only necessary to get well round in a man's mind, to be certain on it. But it took a bit of time to get well round. The change comes so common and plump, didn't it?
Somehow, I was not pleased with Joe's being so mightily secure of me. I should have liked him to have betrayed emotion, or to have said, "It does you credit, Pip," or something of that sort. Therefore I made no remark on Joe's first heed, merely saying as to his seconds that the tidings had indeed come suddenly, but that I had always wanted to be a gentleman, and had often speculated on what I would do if I were one. What I had meant was that when I came into my property and was able to do something for Joe, it would have been much more agreeable if he had been better qualified for a rise in station. He was so perfectly innocent of my meaning, however, that I thought I would not mention it to Biddy in preference. So when we had walked home and had tea, I took Biddy into our little garden by the side of the lane, and after throwing out in a general way for the elevation of her spirits, though I should never forget her, said I had a favour to ask of her. "And it is, Biddy," said I, "that you will not omit any opportunity of helping Joe on a little."
"How helping him on?"
asked Biddy, with a steady sort of glance. "Well, Joe is a dear fellow. In fact, I think he is the dearest fellow that ever lived. But he is rather backward in some things. For instance, Biddy in his learning and his manners." Although I was looking at Biddy as I spoke, and although she had opened her eyes very wide when I had spoken, she did not look at me.
"Oh, his manners. Won't his manners do then?"
"My dear Biddy, they do very well here."
"Oh, they do very well here?"
"Hear me out. But if I were to remove Joe into a higher sphere, as I shall hope to remove him when I fully come into my property, that would hardly do him justice."
"And don't you think he knows that?"
It was such a very provoking question, for it had never in the most distant manner occurred to me, that I said snappishly, "Biddy, what do you mean?"
"Have you never considered that he may be proud?"
"Proud?" I repeated with disdainful emphasis.
"Oh, there are many kinds of pride. Pride is not all of one kind."
"Well, what are you stopping for?" said I.
"Not all of one kind. He may be too proud to let anyone take him out of a place that he is competent to fill, and fills well and with respect. To tell you the truth, I think he is, and though it sounds bold in me to say so, for you must know him better than I do."
"Now, Biddy," said I am very sorry to see this in you. I did not expect to see this in you. You are envious, Biddy, and grudging. You are dissatisfied on account of my rise in fortune, and you can't help but showing it."
"If you have the heart to think so, say so. Say so over and over again, if you have the heart to think so."
If you have the heart to be so, you mean, Biddy, don't put it off upon me. I am very sorry to see it, and it's a bad side of human nature, and I did not intend to ask you to use any little opportunities you might have after I was gone, or improving my dear Joe. But after this, I ask you nothing. I am extremely sorry to see this in you, Biddy, I repeated. It's a bad side of human nature.
Whether you scold me or approve of me, you may equally depend upon me trying to do all that lies in my power here at all times. And whatever opinion you take away of me shall make no difference in my remembrance of you. Yet a gentleman should not be unjust neither.
So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday passed, and on Friday morning I went to pay my visit to Miss Havisham, and rang at the bell constrainingly on account of the stiff long fingers of my gloves. Sarah Pocket came to the gate, and positively reeled back when she saw me. "I'm going to London, Miss Pocket, and want to say my goodbye to Miss Havisham." I was not expected, for she left me locked in the yard. Well, she went to ask if I were to be admitted. After a very short delay, she returned and took me up, staring at me all the way. The room was lighted as of yore, and at the sound of our entrance, she stopped and turned. "I start for London, Miss Havisham, tomorrow, and I thought you would kindly not mind my taking leave of you."
This is a gay figure, Pip.
"I have come into such good fortune since I saw you last, Miss Havisham," I murmured, "and I am so grateful for it, Miss Havisham."
I have seen Mr. Jaggers. I have heard about it, Pip. So you go tomorrow?
"Yes, Miss Havisham."
And you are adopted by a rich person?
"Yes, Miss Havisham."
Not named?
"No, Miss Havisham."
And Mr. Jaggers is made your guardian?
"Yes, Miss Havisham."
Well, you have a promising career before you. Be good, deserve it, and abide by Mr. Jaggers' instructions. Goodbye, Pip.
She stretched out her hand, and I went down on my knee and put it to my lips. "Goodbye, Miss Pocket." She merely stared, and I did not seem collected enough to know that I had spoken. As the 6 evenings had dwindled away, I had become more and more appreciative of the society of Joe and Biddy. I was to leave our village at 5 in the morning, and had told Joe that I wished to walk away alone. I am afraid, sore afraid, that this purpose originated in my sense of the contrast there would be between me and Joe if we went to coach together. Biddy was astir so early to get my breakfast that, although I did not sleep at that window of hour, it was a hurried breakfast with no taste in it. I got up from the meal, saying with a sort of briskness, as if it had only just occurred to me, "Well, I suppose I must be off," said my goodbyes and walked out. The last I saw of them was Joe throwing an old shoe after me, in strong white arm above his head, crying huskily,
Hurrah!
And Biddy put her apron to my face. And this concludes the first act of my great expectations.